15 games to go through on Overreaction Monday for week one. This is our first ever Overreaction Monday. One game to go as well tonight with the Jets and Niners. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. One thing I want to hone in on before this video gets started is average scoring. I've harped on it. Last year, average scoring per game per team has been at almost like a 10-year low. Not 10-year, about since 2017, and then before that 2009 was the lowest. So the numbers so far with week one through the first 15 games look promising. We're at a 22.7 point per game average per team. Now the difference is through week one, receiving touchdowns are at a low not seen since the 70s at 1.1, whereas rushing touchdowns per game are at a high of 1.1 not seen since the 70s as well. Now, is this going to correct itself a little bit? I'm sure it's going to go back to, I don't want to say what normal is, but more what we're used to, where it's typically less than one rushing touchdown a game and upping those receiving touchdowns per game as we're just in a more pass-happy league. One other common theme, though, for this video will be intended air yards per attempt. So in 2023, the median for that stat was 7.6 yards. The QBs with the highest IAYs were Levis, Stroud, Allen, Hurts, Love, Mayfield, Jackson, and Purdy last year. Some of the better quarterbacks, right? With really good fantasy production and good fantasy pass catchers. In week one this year, only 8 quarterbacks were over that 7.6 median. That was Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Sam Darnold, CJ Stroud, and Dak Prescott. The question to ask is it bad offensive line play that's causing that dip there in week one? Is it bad QB play? Is it a mix of both? It's definitely not the receivers. The receiving talent is arguably the best it's ever been. And one contribution to that, in my opinion, would be 7-on-7s. We have some of the best cornerbacks and wide receiver talent that we have seen because of these isolated 7-on-7 games. But that's a video for another time. But let's get into it. First game, Thursday night, Kansas City, Baltimore. Kansas City takes the dub, 27-20. But some underlying stats to talk about. Lamar threw 41 times. They were trailing, I want to say, most of this game. Lamar only threw for 40 plus attempts last year. One time. He did it in week one this year. With that being said, they had a 25 team target share. Only 9 air yards. Lamar was getting the ball out pretty quickly, with his offensive line being pretty poor as expected coming into this season. And then obviously the pass rush of the Chiefs with Chris Jones and others getting home. Lamar was definitely just quick release, nothing downfield really. And again, low intended air yards for him, 2.6, really low. So to go along with that, only throwing for 40 times stat once last year, he also only rushed for 100 plus yards last year once, and he did that this year already in the first game. 16 carries, 122 yards. Now, one thing to be concerned of, not concerned about Zay. I think going forward, Lamar's going to have way more time to pass. So not too concerned about him. In terms of the Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews debacle there, let's give it some time before we really just hone in on Likely being the number one over Andrews. From stats that I saw, Andrews was being double teamed and just kind of taken out of the game and forcing Lamar to have to go somewhere else. That was kind of Kansas City's game plan. With Derrick Henry, obviously he's going to be the main guy on first and second down unless the game script is dictating otherwise. And as we saw with Baltimore trailing, Justice Hill was in there a lot, and he was getting 8 targets, caught 6 for 52 on all the 2-minute drills. We never expected Henry to be on those. So typical to what it was in Tennessee, Henry's really only going to be, I want to say viable, but RB1 viable on positive game scripts and then reliance on touchdowns, which he should be good for 1 a game, hopefully. But if he's not, I mean, it's going to be really rough season for Henry drafters. I wasn't one of them. If you were and you're hopeful, give it some time. Give it some time for this offensive line to mesh. Maybe they get better as the season goes on. Moving on to KC, typical out of them with 9 receivers getting a target. 8 of them had a catch. Mahomes spreading it out. But shocker here, pretty low intended air yards at 4 yards per attempt for Mahomes. Partially because of the Ravens' good defense, but the other part of it is, Rashee Rice slant spam. So he has 9 targets, just slant. Not a bad thing. He's a great yak player. He's always open. He can separate in those routes. So, I mean, they're going to do it until you stop it. With that being said, too, Worthy on 3 targets, gets home once in the air, once on the ground. Can't really say much about the other pass catchers. I wouldn't worry about Kelsey just yet. Let's give it some time. Again, it's week 1. Crazy things happen in week 1. As for Pacheco, 74% of touches out of the backfield, including passing work and 2-minute drills. Carson Steele gets 2 carries. What else? P. Ryan gets 2 targets, 1 catch. Not really much factor here. Andy Reid trusts Pacheco. We're going to keep rocking with Pacheco as an RB1. Moving on to the next game. Packers versus the Eagles. So this one, a little wonky with the turf down there in Brazil. Always kind of wonky with these international games. I didn't think it was going to be as high scoring, typically, because these international games, they got some jet lag, a lot of travel time, whatnot. Doesn't end up being that way. Now, we do get the Jordan Love injury in the last 30 seconds of the game. Doesn't look major. 3 to 6 week injury, hopefully. Sprained MCL. With that being said, with Malik Willis, it's pass catchers are just going to be no. Malik Willis has and will not ever be a good quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. So, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs cannot start them. Now, let's talk about the game, though. Is Jaden Reed Deebo Samuel? Right? He, cribs the only carry he has for 33 yards and a touchdown. Goes 4 for 138 and a touchdown on 6 targets. And that was with Jordan Love with a 50% completion rate and low intended air yards at 4.2. Now, as we assumed, Dobbs, Reed, Watson, 3 main targets. Guys that are going to get the most here, with Dobbs being Mr. Reliable in the intermediate areas whenever they need a first down, or Love's under pressure. He kind of is just looking through Dobbs to kind of be the sure-handed guy. Watson had a really low ADOT at 2, something to be maybe concerned about. He had 5 targets. He had the 1 touchdown in the red zone. He's still obviously the red zone guy. But yeah, low ADOT for him. You would really want him to be more on the outside with his size. That's my take on it. Get him vertical, get him going. Jaden Reed's going to be the schemed up guy. Like I said, Dobbs is Mr. Reliable. For the Eagles, Hurts, same thing. Again, with a lot of underneath stuff, 4.6 intended air yards per attempt. He looked a little lost at times. He had time to throw, and he just kind of was happy feeding it. Kind of how Justin Fields has been in the past. Hurts is obviously better than Fields, but he just kind of was hesitant to run as well and take off. I don't know why, if it's been his past injuries or whatnot. It just didn't look the same when he would take off. It was hesitant, didn't have the burst, wasn't looking to the middle of the field, kind of just ran to the sidelines. So some concern there for his upside there with his rushing. The other part too, just threw some unnecessary balls, had 2 picks that were really his fault. But to be expected, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are just his target funnels with Dallas Goedert. Those 3 combined for 23 targets on 34 pass attempts. And if you want to go even further, it's 23 targets on 32 targets total. Devonta Smith more in the slot. A.J. Brown getting the deeper targets. Goddard was kind of operating around the line of scrimmage, getting screens and whatnot. And then moving on to Saquon. there's not much to say. 3 touchdowns in his first game as an Eagle. I mean, super impressive there. He was averaging 4.5 yards a carry. He touched the ball 26 times. He's the only one in that backfield that's going to get work. So, RB1, he's going to be a top 5, top 3 smash every week, as you expect this team to be in the lead every week as well with such a good offense. And they're going to be high scoring. So all of them are smash starts. Goddard, a little suspect, but I'm still high on Hurts and AJ Brown this year. Smith too, he's going to get spammed with just some easier targets. Hopefully AJ Brown can, again, get some more catchable targets, man. 10 targets, only 5 receptions. So would like to see that up a little more because he is just such a talented receiver. Okay, moving on for this game into the week 1 slate on Sunday. Steelers versus the Falcons. Starting off with Pittsburgh, Russ gets not benched, but he's injured with that calf. So Fields gets the start. A lot of plays dialed up around the scrimmage, but he was taking shots to Pickens down the field. So that was nice to see. But not a lot of pass volume in Pittsburgh as expected. They're gonna be a slower paced offense, really trying to just control the clock, ground and pound. As seen here, their time possession, they held the ball 11 more minutes than the Falcons this game. So they were just trying to take the lead and pound the ball. Fields had some schemed up runs, carried the ball 14 times for 57 yards. Najee, complete workhorse in the backfield. Just absolutely taking all the touches. 21 out of 29 backfield opportunities. That's not including Fields' rushes. Pickens, 31.8 target share. 31.8% target share. He's the only one that's really going to get looks and get the ball. Freiermuth as well could possibly be a start in your tight end slot. Aside from that, they really don't have any receivers that are going to warrant target share. Could change with Wilson, less mobile, not going to run 14 times, probably really not going to run at all. So maybe you do get more passing volume there. You don't expect the Steelers to be winning by a ton every game. You expect to be closer games where it needs to be a little more balanced. But again, the Steelers are going to look to run the ball. One more note, Najee having such a high workload and Warren only getting a few touches, 2 catches, 2 rushes, 4 touches total. I would go out on a limb to say that's just them being careful with his hamstring. But at the same time, Najee's such a hard runner. I think Arthur Smith loves that about him too. So that's my take on it. Najee a start every week. Jaylen Warren, you got to be careful. I would wait one more week and see how I maybe wouldn't start him. Pickens still start. Moving on to Atlanta. Falcons looked horrible. In particular, Kirk Cousins just looked so immobile. He wasn't taking anything under center. Everything is out of the shotgun. He was, short dropbacks, couple steps in release, and the steps were short. Not even like a real movement. Not even a real dropback, in my opinion. Another QB with low intended air yards per attempt at 5.2. No power behind his throws. He is 100%, in my opinion, either still bothered by the Achilles injury or it's in his head. One or the other, but that's bothering his right foot for him to get off of it and put some power behind these throws, because not only was he not throwing far down the field, when he was trying to stretch it down there, the balls were coming up short. There was nothing behind him. And then he was also just making poor decisions as well. Now, with that being said, the Steelers, one of the best defenses in the NFL, one of the best pass rushes, especially with TJ Watt. So moving forward, hopefully Kirk can adjust, get a little healthier, and should not be under pressure all game. Bijan did Bijan things. This is what you want to see out of Bijan. Dominating touches with the new coaching staff. They're feeding them the ball, unlike last year. Bijan had 23 total touches compared to Tyler Allgeier's 3. Bijan was working in the pass game, pounding on the ground. One thing you don't want to see with the pass catchers, Ray McCloud was the leader in targets with 7. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, both at 3, and Darnell Mooney at 3. It's a consolidated target share, but with Ray McCloud at the top. You'd like to see Pitts or London up there. Again, not a lot of passing volume, especially considering the Falcons were kind of working from behind a lot of this game. Only 26 pass attempts, but just not efficient on offense. I think the lowest play total of the week as well for the Falcons. So just not good at all. They were also horrible on third down, just 2 for 9. Oh, not very good. Moving on to the Cardinals and Bills game. So Buffalo takes that one 34-28. Arizona was leading in that first half, or at least that first quarter, 17-0. They got up big, and then they just decided to feature James Conner a ton in that. And then Josh Allen just started doing Josh Allen things later in the game. But Kyler Murray, 21 for 31, 162 yards. Not really efficient, nothing spectacular. Again, 6.2 intended air yards per attempt for Kyler. Still not at that 7.6 median, so still low number. I think the lowest last year was 6.2 or 6.3, and that was the lowest in the league on a yearly. That was yearly stats though. Anyway, Kyler, he looked good. Feet are under him. 5 carries, 57 yards. Like to see him be a little better passing wise. James Conner dominated the backfield with 19 touches compared to Trey Benson's 4. They're still just going to feed him unless, an injury occurs to him. So he's definitely startable, fringe RB1, definitely high RB2 guy who's going to get near 20 touches a week. And he'll get 3-4 targets in the passing game as well. Now, with that being said, moving on to the pass catchers, this is just, if you're a Marvin Harrison drafter, I wouldn't panic yet, but I'd be nervous. 1 catch, 4 yards, 3 targets. That's not good. On the other side, Greg Dortch, 6 catches, 47 yards, 8 targets. Trey McBride, 5 catches, 30 yards, 9 targets. McBride, I'm cool with that. He had a ton of team target share. McBride and Dortch combined for 55% team target share. Okay, so if you're Marvin Harrison drafter, not what you want to see. Michael Wilson gets a touchdown on 2 targets. But just an overall not great day. You'd think if the Cardinals are putting up 28 points that Marvin Harrison had a hand in that, maybe Trey McBride, but no. Neither of them really played a role in that. It was mostly James Conner and Greg Dortch. Don't panic yet, week 1. But I'd be nervous. James Conner, smash. Kyler, still smash because of his rushing upside. Don't go ahead and start Greg Dortch. Not necessary. Be cautious with Marvin Harrison. He's still a start. You drafted him in round 1, round 2. You got to start him. Trey McBride, he's getting the targets. Let it fall into place. Moving on to the Bills. Bills side of things, Josh Allen started a little slow. A little uneasy, but ends the day 18 for 23, 232 with 2 touchdowns. And what really saves the day, 9 carries, 39 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. So no regression for Josh Allen. He's going to continue to be the QB1 apparently every week. No matter who's catching the ball, no matter who they're playing against, he's that guy. James Cook dominates backfield touches. He has 19 carries, 3 receptions on 3 targets. That's 22 total touches. Ray Davis and Ty Johnson have 5 carries combined and 1 catch combined. So nothing to worry about there. There was an instance where James Cook did get stuffed at the goal line and Josh Allen gets in. I would think that Ray Davis eventually starts to take a goal line role away from James Cook. But James Cook's still really efficient in the passing game. A great check down for Josh Allen. Pass catchers, Keon Coleman with the most targets at 5. But this was just such a spread out chart. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pass catchers with a target, and 9 of them with 1 or more catches. So not one guy getting the rock here, not one guy that's getting honed in on by Josh Allen. Again, Keon Coleman was the leading receiver with 4 for 51 on 5 targets. Shakir 3 for 42 and a touchdown on 3 targets. If anyone's startable, it's Keon Coleman. And that's in deeper leagues as a flex. Or if you have 2 flex, I'll probably be starting him in my 2 flex league 10-man over Deontay, I think. But yeah, something to be concerned about. Also, Curtis Samuel, only 2 targets, 2 for 15. Probably still nursing that turf toe, being cautious there. But something to be wary about. Dalton Kincaid, I'd be concerned. Elite tight ends, we're concerned about. But still not panic. Moving on. Patriots Bengals. Upset of the week. Patriots take down the Bengals 16-0. Not 16-0, 16-10. Unsurprised though, that it was such a close game. I'm surprised that the Patriots win. Unsurprised that it was this close. With T. Higgins being out, Jamar Chase not being at practice, basically all camp, and just still being a headache, and Joe Burrow with that wrist injury. A lot of factors playing into this Bengals team being, slow to start, and they're notoriously slow starters in September. They never have good Septembers. Joe Burrow never has good Septembers, mostly because he's always coming off some kind of injury. That's besides the fact. Let's talk about New England. Jacoby Brissett, nothing to write home about. 15 for 24, 121 yards. Just, again, following through with this quarterback play is awful. I don't think the Bengals defense is very good, but I also don't think Jacoby Brissett's very good as well. Or New England, but they catch the dub. Ramondre, absolutely monster game, dominates backfield touches, 25 carries to Antonio Gibson's 7, much more efficient than Antonio Gibson at 4.8 yards carry compared to 2.6. Also, in the passing game, Ramondre gets 3 targets, 3 catches, 6 yards, so 28 total touches and a touchdown. Now, the one shocker is he was more efficient on the ground than he was through the air. You're expecting in a PPR league that Ramondre would be getting, some more yards, maybe a couple more catches because they're going to be down, but they happen to be in this game. So he's getting a lot more rushes. Luckily, he was efficient with those. As for New England pass catchers, nobody's startable right now. We have no idea who's going to be the one. KJ Osborne was the leader in targets with 6, but it's not pretty. Jacoby Brissett's not pretty. The only starter here is Ramondre Stevenson. Not even Hunter Henry startable. He did have a red zone target, but that's about it. Moving on to the Bengals. Burrow, 21 of 29, 164 yards, no touchdowns. Not good. I didn't get to watch much of this game because I was watching the Steelers game and then I watched Red Zone. But from what I heard and what I saw, Burrow was just kind of spooked out in the pocket, thinking there was pressure when there wasn't pressure. And just not looking good overall. Maybe nursing that wrist still. So who knows? But that's just not a stat line you see from Joe Burrow often. Jamar Chase, only 6 targets, 6 for 62. Yoshivas, 6 targets, 3 for 26. And then just kind of spread out overall. Zach Moss leads the running back room with 9 carries. Chase Brown has 3. Zach Moss more efficient. Chase Brown, Zach Moss, 4 and 3 targets out of the backfield. Not split usage in terms of who's getting the ball. And I do think Zach Moss outsnapped Chase Brown. I think I saw Chase Brown had, I want to say 39% snap rate. So Zach Moss there is the RB1 for now. That's what I expected to happen. Don't think Chase Brown's that good. Don't think Zach Moss is that good. But Zach Moss is the vet who's 27, still athletic, still good, had a good start to last year. Bengals are going to give him a chance. Now, if I was a Bengals fan, which I'm not, I'm a Steelers fan, I'd be concerned. You just lost to the worst team in the NFL. You know who lost to the worst team in the NFL last year? The Steelers. Okay? So, be concerned. Moving on to the next game, we have the Vikings and the Giants. Vikings take down the Giants 28-6 in a game that they cruised full time. The Vikings crushed the New York Giants. The Giants weren't even in it for a second. Sam Darnold, 19 for 24, 208, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He looked just fine, but the Giants defense isn't anything special. Aaron Jones handles majority of the backfield work. Much more efficient than Ty Chandler too. Aaron Jones 1494, averaging 6.7 yards a carry and a touchdown. Ty Chandler 8 for 17, 2.1 yards a carry. Jefferson gets home with a touchdown on 6 targets, 4 for 59. Touchdown saves his day. They were winning most of this game. In games that they're going to be trailing, which I would assume is most of them, he will definitely have double-digit targets and majority of the target share, especially now that Jordan Addison is dealing with a different ankle injury than he was coming into this game. So both ankles injured. Addison probably going to miss some time. Don't know the exact report on him. Hawkinson's still out. So really the only guy you're battling for targets with is Jalen Naylor. JJ's going to eat targets now. Okay. Addison had a decent day before he went down, 3 for 35, 4 targets. Chandler involved in the passing game with 3 for 25, 3 targets. Aaron Jones 2 for 15 with 2 targets. The rest is kind of null and void. Ty Chandler still a good handcuff back to have, not startable unless super deep leagues. Maybe Ty Chandler becomes more of an option with Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson both down. Jalen Naylor, someone to pick up on waivers as well. But Jefferson will continue to be a smash in all formats. Nothing to be concerned about in terms of that. I think Sam Darnold played just fine. He'll be just fine. He'll be a league average, maybe a little bit below league average quarterback. Moving on to the Giants. Daniel Jones, 22 for 42, 186 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks, one of which was a pick 6 on a wide receiver screen where the D end was just left with a free rush and just ran right into the ball and scored. So, horrible schemed up play there. Also, Daniel Jones has to see that. But that sounds like a normal Daniel Jones stat line. I'm still not as low on Daniel Jones as most. They'll be just fine. But 42 pass attempts and only 22 completions is not what you want to see. With that being said, Devin Singletary is the RB1 here, but couldn't obviously get going when you're trailing the whole game. He had 10 carries, 37 yards. Tyron Tracy, Eric Gray, both split with 2 carries each. Not efficient at all. Pass catchers, there were 9 guys to get a target, 8 with a catch. Neighbors and Wandale combined for 19 total targets. Wandale with 12 targets. 19 total targets out of 38 possible targets. So Wandale and Neighbors combining for 50% target share there. Wandale out of the slot, just going to get a ton of easy passes. Neighbors should hopefully be reaching that double-digit range, but if he's not doing it now when you're trailing the whole game on 42 pass attempts, I don't know. Cause for concern, in my opinion. Devin Singletary, 5 targets, 4 catches, 15 yards. Still a good start. Just running back on a bad offense. Hopefully they're in games more for him to succeed. But not changing anything there. Tyron Tracy and Eric Gray, like I said, splitting. It looks like at least splitting work. I don't know the snap percentages yet. Moving on to the Titans-Bears game. The Titans get out to a quick lead, 17-0 into, I want to say, halftime. The Bears end up winning this one 24-17. Will Levis, horrible performance, 19 for 32, 127 yards. Again, just like, what is that stat line? 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Horrible, horrible, horrible. 4.0 average yards per attempt. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Now, Bears defense is really good. Revamped. They were one of the best at the back half of the year last year. And then going into this year, I'm pretty sure they added some new guys. They got Jalen Johnson on the corner. Like, their defense is good. So for Will Levis to have to endure that week 1 is pretty tough. And at the same time, he does need to still be better in the short to intermediate part of the field. He can't just continue to send it downfield. In the backfield, Tony Pollard dominates in carries and touches. 16 carries to Tyjae Spears' 4. When we thought Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard were going to be 1A, 1B, but it's looking like it's just going to be the hot hand because Spears was efficient. 5.3 average, Pollard on 5.1 average with a nice 25-yard touchdown run. But it just looks like they're going to ride the hot hand. Whoever's really rolling first will kind of get the ball until they're not hot. Into the receivers, Calvin Ridley dominates in targets, 7 targets, but only 3 catches and 50 yards. I mean, look, like that's what Calvin really is a deeper threat, especially in this offense. Hopefully D-Hop can come back next week and take some pressure off. I just don't think Tyler Boyd at his age really was helping. He only had 3 catches for 18 yards, 5 targets. So D-Hop back will help him be on the outside, and Ridley can kind of move back into maybe an X role like they said they wanted to use him as, and like a Jamar Chase role. Get him some easier yard after catch throws for Ridley. Get him in space, make plays. Hopefully that happens. We'll see. Not only does that need to happen, but Levis needs to be on time with his throws in that intermediate to shorter ranges. He can't just be off time there, letting cornerbacks get to the ball. Tony Pollard, 4 targets. Tyjae Spears also 4 targets. So kind of split there in the passing game for those two. But that's about it. And also, I don't know why I didn't think DeAndre Hopkins wasn't going to play. He played, but only 1 catch, 1 target for 8 yards. I don't know the snap counts. I don't know if they had him limited because of his injury, that MCL sprain. I would assume he was. So, again, if he can get more involved, I think they'll be just fine. Onto the Bears side of things, Caleb Williams, horrible stat line, horrible rookie debut, but catch the dub because the defense just eats Will Levis alive, and they come back. Caleb Williams, 14 for 29, 93 yards, 3.2 yards per attempt. Horrible. We won't even, not even going to talk about that one. Not even going to think about it. Going to push past it. Rushing wise, DeAndre Swift leads in carries, 10 for 30. Caleb Williams did carry the ball 5 times. And then just Velus Jones Jr., Travis Homer, and Khalil Herbert each get 2 carries out of the backfield. Just all over the place. Again, Swift, not super efficient. This is a pretty good Titans defense, especially their front 7. So maybe some easier matchups coming up. Also playing from behind didn't help Swift's case, but it looks like they do want to get him going. He does get a total of, 10 carries. He didn't get any receptions. He had 1 target out of the backfield. Pass catchers, Keenan Allen, 11 targets. DJ Moore, 8 targets. Odunze, 4 targets. So it's looking like the target funnels are going to be the guys that we thought. The only thing is Caleb Williams just needs to be better. DJ Moore, only 5 for 36 on 8 targets. Keenan Allen, 4 for 29 on 11 targets. Odunze, 1 for 11 on 4 targets. So we do need to be better there, Caleb. Aside from that, though, you're starting Keenan, you're starting DJ Moore. I wouldn't say necessarily with the utmost confidence, but they will get their target share every week. Adunze, still not a start in my opinion, because they were trailing this game in the first half, and none of these guys still produced. So hopefully that efficiency goes up. Caleb Williams gets better as the season goes on, as we all expect. Moving on to the worst performance of the week. Carolina Panthers, just miserable game to watch against the New Orleans Saints. 47-10, Saints favor. The Saints just dominated off the rip. They dominated time possession, 36 minutes to 23 minutes. The Panthers were 1 for 10 on third down. The Saints were 7 for 13. I mean, this Panthers offense, and in particular Bryce Young, was horrible. They couldn't get anything going. They're best when they're in the hurry up. It's slow. It's ugly. It's ugly football. Bryce Young, 13 for 30, 161 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks, gives up 4 sacks. We're not even going to harp on this one too much. Miles Sanders, 5 carries. Chuba Hubbard, 6 carries. Mike Boone, 4 carries. So thought Chuba was going to be the man. Again, this game is kind of, can't even think about this one because it was such a blowout that we don't even know what was going on. And they were still trying to run the ball when they were down 20 plus points. That's just a typical horrible thing to do. Such a Panthers thing to do. Let's continue to try to run the ball when we're down 20 plus points. Anyway, Bryce Young should have finished with 40 plus attempts. Like, what's the harm, right? Only finishes with 30. Running back room, muddy. Receivers, Leggett and Deontay leading targets. Leggett has 7, Deontay has 6. One thing to note, I saw that Deontay didn't play most of the fourth quarter. So again, not even in there to get targets. One other thing to note, not a lot of catchable targets for Deontay. Leggett got a lot of his stuff in garbage time, which was the whole game. Thielen leads in yards, 3 for 49 on 4 targets. But again, I do expect Deontay to be the target leader moving forward. Still, I expect this team to be bad. Hopefully they're not getting blown out by 37 points to where they can't even continue to play their starters in the fourth quarter because of risk of injury. Yeah, Deontay would be the only one that would be a viable start here. Chuba Hubbard doesn't get involved in the passing game either. No running backs do. I would avoid unless matchup based. Deontay, fringe flex play. Now, moving on. Next game of the week was the Jaguars and the Dolphins. Now, the Jaguars are winning most of this game. Dolphins come back, win it 20-17. Looks like it might have went to overtime, but they win on a 52-yard field goal by Jason Sanders. Talking about the Jaguars first. Trevor Lawrence, 12 for 21, 162 yards, and a touchdown. Not super impressive stat line either. Again, another quarterback under 200 yards. Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne split the amount of carries, 12 and 12, with Bigsby being way more efficient. So Bigsby has 73 yards, 6.1 average, and Etienne has 44 yards, 3.7 average. So something to note there, they do split carries. With that being said, again, they wanted to lay off the pedal on Etienne and not give him as much volume to keep him healthy and being safer, as long as Bigsby was able to perform, and he does, and he didn't fumble to my knowledge. So that's good. Should we be concerned about Etienne? No, because he's still going to get involved in the pass game. He had 3 targets, 2 for 15. He should still be there with that, be able to get home. He's still the goal line back. So unless Bigsby starts taking goal line work, I don't think we need to stress about Travis Etienne too much. They're just doing what they said they were going to do. Receivers, target share, passing volume low, 21 total passes, only 19 possible targets. Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, leaders in targets with 4 each. But I mean, on 19 opportunities, there's not much to do there. Christian Kirk is 1 for 30. Brian Thomas, 4 for 47 and a touchdown on a sick pass by Trevor Lawrence, by the way. If you guys haven't seen that clip, go check that out. Type in Brian Thomas Jr. on Twitter. Trevor Lawrence threw this thing as he's getting hit, and Brian Thomas is a good 15, 20 yards from the spot of the ball. Like, it's crazy. And then Gabe Davis actually leading in yards, 3 for 62 on his 3 targets. So with these guys, I wouldn't panic necessarily. Christian Kirk is still a start with 4 targets. Brian Thomas can now be a start. ETN still a start. Evan Ingram, 4 targets, only 1 for 5. Again, week 1, don't panic yet. Don't panic yet. So if we move, and again, the Jaguars were winning a lot of this game. So working on running the ball, it was slower paced for them. But let's move on to the Dolphins. Tua, 23 for 37, 338 yards. Finally, some passing efficiency and a touchdown. Dolphins just doing Dolphin stuff with big plays. Now, one thing to talk about, Jeff Wilson getting involved as a third back here this year, more so than last year. Raheem Mostert with 6 carries, 9 yards, very inefficient. Jeff Wilson, 5 for 26 with a 5.2 average, so efficient. Devon Achane getting the most carries out of this backfield, 10 for 24 at 2.4 average. With a rushing touchdown, though, on the goal line. So nice to see that. Achane is getting majority of the carries out of this backfield. He does also get 7 catches for 76 yards on 7 targets. So he gets 17 total touches in this offense on 17 opportunities. As we expected with Achane, they were going to bump up his, opportunity share this year. But we didn't know that Mostert was going to get bumped down so much. Now, if we're looking at pass catchers, again, the target funnels, Tyreek Hill, 12 targets, 7 for 130 and a touchdown on an 80-yard bomb. Jalen Waddle, 5 targets, 5 for 109. He's just going to be extremely efficient with his targets typically. He did miss. There was a chance that he was going to be out this game. He was getting evaluated for concussion. Ended up coming back in the game and did rip off a nice 63-yard catch. Hopefully Jalen Waddle can find the end zone, bump up the targets a little more, and then again, Achane being another target funnel. So with those 3 guys, they get 24 total targets out of 36. That's 66% of the team's target share, as we should expect. Raheem Mostert not start until we see otherwise. I would be somewhat concerned with Raheem Mostert. Luckily, he was a late round pick, so you're not too worried. But Achane, if you took him, be happy. I'm an Achane owner. I took him in the 4th round, I want to say. So moving on to the next game of the week, Texans Colts. I'm gonna try to speed this up a little bit. We're moving slow. Texans win 29-27 in a little bit of a shootout. CJ Stroud 24 for 32, 2 touchdowns. Right back into midseason form for CJ Stroud, looking good. The biggest thing about this week, though, with the Texans, Joe Mixon, 30 carries, 159 yards, and 1 touchdown. He touched the ball on 30 rushes, 3 catches. He touched the ball 33 times on 33 total opportunities. That's insane. Joe Mixon just put out one of the best games of his career in terms of efficiency. The Texans are going to utilize him, it looks like, and continue to utilize him as just an every down back. Dameon Pierce gets 3 carries. Nobody else really touching the rock. Tank Dell gets a couple schemed up runs. Diggs gets a schemed up carry. Receiving wise, again, as we expect with these 3 guys, Collins, Dell, and Diggs eat up all the targets, 8, 7, and 6 respectively. That's 21 out of 31 targets there. And then Joe Mixon gets a handful as well. Nobody else viable besides those 4 guys in this offense and CJ Stroud. Dalton Schultz is just going to struggle. If you're starting Dalton Schultz in your tight end slot, you should be worried. But yeah, as we assumed too, Diggs in the slot role, he ends up with 2 touchdowns, 6 for 33. Tank Dell, there was an end zone, there was a target with him deep in the end zone, and it just gets tipped. Otherwise, that would have been a nice touchdown for Tank Dell, but he ends 3 for 40, and then Nico Collins 6 for 117. Each of these guys are going to kind of share weeks as we assumed. No need to panic on any of them if you were. For the Colts, Anthony Richardson, insane stat line, 9 for 19, 212 yards, 11.2 average, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. And then on the ground, Richardson, 6 for 56 and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor, 16 carries, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Taylor, nobody else in the backfield touches the ball besides AR, but he's just extremely inefficient, but does get a goal line touchdown that saves his day. And again, he still gets 16 carries. The thing you should be concerned about with JT is not a single target out of the backfield. In a game that the Colts scores 27 points and the other team scores 29, there's only 19 pass attempts. So as for pass catchers too, you're kind of concerned there, where Michael Pittman does get 8 targets, but he's 4 for 31. And Anthony Richardson is just a horrible passer. He's super inaccurate. He's going to have a ton of uncatchable targets. Not all targets are the same, right? I would rather have 6 catchable targets than 10 with 5 uncatchable, right? Because at least my receiver can get to the ball. So that's just ugly. I did see AD Mitchell, 5 targets. They were like 3 balls that he should have had touchdowns on that AR just overthrew him on. Alec Pierce, 3 for 125 and a touchdown. So big play threats on this Colts team. But that's about it. I'd be concerned for Michael Pittman, in my opinion. And I would also be concerned about Jonathan Taylor. AR is a smash, though. Next game, we got the Raiders, Chargers. Another just boring, ugly game. This one will be quick. Chargers win 22-10. Gardner Minshew is 25 for 33, 257 with a touchdown and a pick. Zamir White gets majority of the carries out of the backfield with 13. Super inefficient. Alexander Madison does get 5 carries for 19. Not a ton of rush volume. The thing to be concerned about that we kind of figured coming into the season, at least smart drafters did, Zamir White, A, wasn't going to get every carry out of the backfield, and B, wasn't going to get the receiving down work. So Madison ends up with 6 targets, 4 for 43, and a touchdown. Zamir White gets 2 targets, 2 for 2. So if you drafted Zamir White, be worried. If you want 0 RB and got Zamir White, be worried. In my opinion, unstartable in a really bad offense. He's not getting every touch. He's relying on rushing touchdowns that just aren't going to come in a Raiders offense. Just not startable. Alexander Madison's not startable. Pass catchers that are startable, still Devontae Adams. He's 5 for 59 with 6 targets. Brock Bowers, yes, 6 for 58 with 8 targets. Jacoby Myers is extremely efficient, 3 for 61 on 3 targets. He's also not startable. So the only guys you can look to and should feel comfortable with are Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers. But that's it. Even with Devontae Adams, a little bit concerning there. He's probably frustrated. He gets 6 targets in a game that they were down in. So nothing exciting there. Usual work. It's good to see Brock Bowers getting 8 targets in his first game, and he's looking pretty healthy there too. Chargers, Justin Herbert, 17 for 26, 144 yards and a touchdown. Again, not a stat line you want to see. Rushing wise though, the old head, J.K. Dobbins, 10 for 135 and a touchdown. Ripped a couple big gainers actually. Gus Edwards, super inefficient, 11 for 26. They do split backfield carries, just J.K. Dobbins ends up being a lot more efficient. So we'll see what that share looks like next week, if they do lean on Dobbins more because he had a better game, or if they continue to just split backfield work and play the hot hand. You can start Dobbins. I'd just be wary. He does have a little receiving role. He does get 3 targets out of the backfield, 3 for 4 yards. Gus Edwards only got 1 target, 1 for 2 yards. Now, the concerning thing is who to start, right? That's been the whole question for these Chargers receivers. McConkey leads with 7 targets, 5 for 39, and a touchdown. He does get a red zone target and scores on it, making 2 guys miss. Looks sick. Moving forward, just like as I said with Keon Coleman, I may be thinking about starting Ladd McConkey this week in my double flex league. Again, just someone attached to Justin Herbert, same with someone attached to Josh Allen. I feel pretty comfortable that they have a chance at, breaking a nice chunk play or whatever to save their day or getting a touchdown. Quentin Johnston actually is second in targets with 5, 3 for 38. Josh Palmer, who I thought would be Mr. Reliable for Justin Herbert, and he was one of my most drafted players on Underdog, only 4 targets, 2 for 15. He ends up getting ejected this game for getting into a fight late in the game. Ridiculous. But besides Ladd McConkey, and even then, if it's a deep league or double flex, that's where you're starting him, you're kind of avoiding these pass catchers and really only thinking about starting J.K. Dobbins, maybe. That's deep leagues too. Moving on to the next game, we have Broncos Seahawks. With this one, Seahawks win 26-20. Bo Nix for the Broncos, 26 of 42, 138 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One stat I want to note for Bo Nix, he was like 2 for 12 for 42 yards on passes over 10 yards with 2 picks. And it just seemed like everything that was going deeper than 10 was just getting, the Seahawks are getting a hand on, batting balls down, getting the ball. So just Bo Nix didn't look like he had the arm strength to really get the ball downfield. And coming into the draft and everything, Bo Nix was kind of like this check down merchant guy. And it appears to be true, at least so far through week 1. Now, the Seahawks do have a good defense, especially a secondary. It's a tough one to go up against for Bo Nix as a rookie. Rushing-wise, this backfield was a mess. Jaleel McLaughlin gets 10 carries. He leads the way. Javonte with 8. Everyone's super inefficient. Estime had 2 for 14. Bo Nix had a couple carries, but just super inefficient out of the backfield here. Receiving wise, Quillen Sutton with 12 targets, but only 4 for 38. Nice to see he does have a huge target share. He can still be started. Just to understand that there's going to be a lot of uncatchable balls. Josh Reynolds does have 8 targets, 5 for 45. I wouldn't start him right away, but in super deep leagues, you can kind of start to see, 42 pass attempts could be the norm, honestly, because the Broncos just aren't going to be winning a lot of games. So if Josh Reynolds really is the locked-in receiver 2, something to note there. Jaleel McLaughlin, 5 targets, 5 catches for 1 measly yard. So PPR merchant, Jaleel McLaughlin's going to get, a lot of catches out of this backfield, I think. Just a matter of how good they're going to be, how efficient they'll be. Everything else is really ugly with this Broncos offense. Nothing to say about it. Geno Smith, 18 for 25, 171 with a touchdown and interception. The real star of the day, though, Kenneth Walker, 20 carries, 103 yards, and a touchdown. He did hurt his abdomen, said he was fine at the end of the game, but did come out towards the end of the game, and Zach Charbonnet took over, which is why Charbonnet had 8 carries, but only 12 yards. So Kenneth Walker, again, extremely efficient runner. If he's healthy, obviously a must start. Charbonnet still a must hold, handcuff. Receiving-wise, probably going to be a shocker to most, but Tyler Lockett leads the team in targets, 6 for 77 on 7 targets. Followed by DK Metcalf with 4 targets and Noah Fant with 4 targets. DK only 3 for 29. Zach Charbonnet is 2 for 29 with a touchdown on 3 targets. JSN, if you drafted JSN, be a little bit worried with Tyler Lockett still having such a big role. JSN only has 2 targets, 2 for 19. Difficult matchup for DK, obviously facing Pat Surtain. He's still continued to start. It's still temper expectations. And then with JSN and Tyler Lockett, I really wouldn't be starting either of them. That's more matchup based. But again, it seems to me Tyler Lockett just is still going to have a nice role. Geno Smith's comfortable with him. That's it for that game. Moving over to the Cowboys and the Browns. Cowboys demolished the Browns 33-17. That 17 is not even worth noting. Like, it was over as soon as this game started. The Cowboys just dominated everything. Dak 19 for 32, 179 and a touchdown. It wasn't even the Dallas offense that looked great. It was just the Dallas defense dominating. Zeke 10 for 40 and a touchdown. Dowdle 8 carries for 26. Zeke kind of had some burst. He looked decent, hurdle a guy. Didn't look bad, looked slimmed down actually compared to last year in camp. So honestly, if you want to throw Zeke in just because he's going to get the carries and the goal line carries, he still start. And then Dowdle, you're just still kind of looking to see what could happen. Receiving wise, obviously Lamb 10 targets, 5 for 61. Not the greatest day, didn't score, but didn't have to. It's a game where they led the whole time. Brandon Cook 7 targets, 4 for 40 and a touchdown. Ferguson does get hurt, something to note. They could see an uptick in Brandon Cooks getting targets. But yeah, Fergie goes down. Don't know if it's an ankle or a knee injury yet, but he had 5 targets, 3 for 15. Something to keep an eye on. And then if we're moving over to the Browns, before we get talking here, Njoku also suffered what appeared to be an ankle injury and came out of the game just as he was starting to get spam some targets in like the early third quarter. So 2 major tight ends down for fantasy. Deshaun Watson, 24 for 45, 169 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. One thing to note, he cedes 6 sacks. Horrible to allow that to happen. There was one, he's rolling out. It was a 4th down play. Instead of just throwing the ball like you have nothing to lose, you're already losing the game, whatnot. He just takes the sack, doesn't even throw it up, doesn't throw it away, doesn't do anything. He just doesn't look good at all. I don't know how Browns fans continue to defend him. It's just preposterous at this point to defend that contract, to defend him is wild. I mean, I'm saying this as a Steelers fan, but he's just horrible. If you do defend him, God bless you. You will never be a talent scout ever. Cleveland's rushing. Jerome Ford gets majority of the carries here. Pierre Strongly gets 2. Jerome Ford, 12 carries, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Leading pass catchers and targets, Jerome Ford has 7 targets, 6 for 25. So, I mean, obviously when the Browns are losing, Jerome Ford's going to get some dump offs. Again, Deshaun Watson doesn't look good throwing deep down the field. Looks inaccurate. Amari Cooper also 9 targets, but only 2 for 16. Super, super inefficient. Deshaun Watson cannot locate or throw a deep ball. He had Amari on a lot of stuff, or potential stuff. Just needs to be able to throw in a tight window. Who else? Jerry Jeudy, 8 targets, 3 for 25 and a touchdown. Njoku, 5 targets, 4 for 44. Elijah Moore even had 6 targets, but only 3 for 9. I mean, with 45 pass attempts, you expect these numbers to be something, but with a good Dallas defense and a bad quarterback, just really doesn't matter. With Njoku out, I'd say you could potentially start Jerry Jeudy. But it's just, I don't know. This Cleveland Browns offense, like Jerome Ford, is really just the smash, and then Amari Cooper. I don't really know what else you want to do there without Njoku in there. Moving on to the next game with Commanders Buccaneers. Buccaneers take down the Commanders 37-20. In Jaden Daniels' debut, he goes 17 for 24, 184, no touchdowns, no picks, 16 carries, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He looked to kind of be a first read and run guy. Took a lot of hits. Didn't really look like sustainable for a good winning offense. He needs to be able to stay in the pocket more. He is not Lamar Jackson. I don't know. Just decent debut for fantasy. If you have him in fantasy, congrats. But if you're a Commanders fan, meh. You really hope he's not taking that many hits and not trying to rush the ball that much. Brian Thomas is the clear RB1, at least in terms of rushing. And just overall, the clear RB1, really, he gets 12 carries compared to Austin Eckler's 2. And he gets 4 targets with 3 catches compared to Austin Eckler's 4 targets and 4 catches. So again, they split receiving duties, which was to be expected. But in terms of straight rushing the ball, Brian Thomas is that guy. 12 for 40 and a touchdown, where Austin Eckler only has 2 for 10. Passing volume is bad with 24 pass attempts when they were losing the whole game. So not much to say about the pass catchers. Panic on Terry McLaurin, 100%. I know it's week 1. Panic. I don't know why people were drafting him. He's 29 years old, and we're high on him. He gets 1,000 yards, but he's never a high-scoring fantasy player. And now he has a quarterback that wants to run the ball 15 times. So take that as you will. He's just kind of like a not as good Lamar Jackson at quarterback. So really, he's not going to be able to sustain Terry McLaurin, in my opinion, especially when Eckler and Brian Robinson are getting dump-offs. But yeah, Terry McLaurin, 4 targets, 2 for 17. Not much else to say about this one. Going into the last game of the Sunday, and before the Monday night game tonight, the Lions and the Rams. Lions won 26-20 in overtime. Really good game. With this one too, one thing to note, Puka does re-injure his bursa sack, and I just got word that he's going on IR. So we're going to talk about what happened when he went out. Matt Stafford, 34 for 49, 317 with a touchdown and a pick. Kyren Williams dominates touches. The punting return allegations did not phase him. Super inefficient, only 2.8 yards a carry, but he does score a goal line touchdown. He was getting crushed at the line of scrimmage. A couple linemen went down for the Rams early on this game too. I think they're missing like 3 guys on the line now. So Kyren Williams' inefficiencies partly due to that. Also, a lot of the play calls were just like runs right up the middle the whole time. Nothing really working to balance him out. Ronnie Rivers does get 2 carries, but receiving wise is where it really changes, right? So Puka goes out of the game. Cooper Kupp gets 21 targets. The next closest this week was Isaiah Likely at 12. With that, the stat line's 14 catches, 110, and a touchdown for Cooper Kupp. Smash in fantasy. He's going to be a smash at 31 years old. Getting him in the 4th, 5th round. A super smash now that Puka's on the IR. Cooper Kupp is top 5, top 3, arguably every week until Puka returns. Now, when Puka was in the game, they were kind of splitting that target share, as we all expected. 1A, 1B. Puka ended with 4 for 35 on 4 targets. Someone that is going to soak up these targets with Puka's injury here, Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson, 2 guys to note, with 7 targets each. Tyler Johnson, 5 for 79, and Demarcus Robinson, 4 for 42. They both look pretty good with some speed and some juice. Corbin Parkinson, 5 targets, 4 for 47, does his job as a tight end. Kyren gets 3 targets, but only 3 for 4 yards. So nothing crazy there with the Rams offense besides the Puka injury. We know Kyren's a start. We know Kupp's a smash start now. I would go ahead and wait and see which one of Demarcus Robinson or Tyler Johnson soaks up more targets. But Colby Parkinson does become arguably a must-start tight end, especially in deep leagues. So that's nice there. Moving on to the Lions, the last team that we're going to analyze here. 18 of 28, 217 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. David Montgomery, 17 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown in overtime. He was soaking up the yards, and he scored that touchdown for the game winner. Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 carries, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Gibbs a little less efficient than Montgomery. And to be expected, Montgomery's the guy that really is just soaking up the rock in early downs, and pounding the ball, weakening defenses. They are splitting drives still as well. But those are the only 2 guys that are going to be touching the ball in the backfield. Receiving wise, Jameson Williams actually leads this team in targets, 5 for 121, and a touchdown on 9 targets, with Amon-Ra, Gibbs with 6 each, and then Laporta with 5. So very consolidated target shares here to be expected as well, with St. Brown, Gibbs, Laporta, and Williams the only ones really getting the ball. Montgomery does get 1 target, 1 catch, 2 yards. So not any surprise with either of these two teams. The game didn't disappoint. Great game. Looking forward to tonight's game with the Jets and the Niners. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers looking good. Hopefully we can get some high scoring games coming up in week 2. For fantasy terms, it was pretty lackluster week. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. We're gonna be trying to do this one every week, trying to get it done every Monday and getting it out every Monday. It's gonna be about an hour long every time, trying to get some good insights, some good stats. Hope you guys appreciate this again. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe, comment what you liked about it, what we could do better. Appreciate y'all. Peace.